Hello everyone and welcome to the Process Podcast. Today I'm joined by the founder and designer behind shopjenatang.com. It is a premium women's wear brand based out of Calgary, Alberta. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jena.
Hi, thanks for asking me to be here.
Yeah, so one of the main reasons I wanted you to kind of come on the show is because for me, I think the thing that separates, a faceless corporation from a movement or a business that people can really resonate with are their core values. So maybe you could kind of just start off by telling us more about the core values of your business and how they kind of came about for you.
Well, I was in design I've been designing for like 8 years. And working for other people, I've just been around that, what fashion is known for, which is, it's very cutthroat. You got to treat people a certain way to get to where you want to go. And, it was against everything that I believed in. And it was like working with other people and being around that environment where, but I love fashion so much that I was like, how do I change this? How do I do it differently? And that was one of the big motivations why I quit my job, because I'm like, I want to do things differently. Mm-hmm. So that's why I set out to start my own line. And it was a very long process, but and every day I'm still discovering it and figuring out like, how do I do things differently? From everything from choosing the people that I work with, which is so important to me, because in fashion, like a lot of people will be like, well, we'll just like outsource it, take it to a third world country, make it for like $5 and literally sell it for like 20 times the price. So it's so much easier,
Right.
it's sourcing it, and it takes kind of the hard work out of it, all the legwork, because it's just there for you. But I'm like, no, I want to do it differently. I literally flew to LA and back, New York. I did so many trips in a year. I wanted to visit like every studio, every potential manufacturer, and meet every single person that was making my clothes. And, there's a lot of resistance, when I was flying out to New York, like one of the production managers was just like, why do you need to meet every studio work? He's just like, the designers don't usually show up here. It's not normal for a designer to come to the studio and meet the people. And they were baffled by it, which I was like, well, shouldn't this be the way that things are? Mm-hmm. Don't you want to know who's making your clothes? That's also one of the reasons why I wanted to source in North America too. Like I wanted to control every aspect of my business and change the way what people know fashion for, which, a lot of people's like, poor labor and like unethical work. And so that's just one of the aspects that I wanted to do differently. And it's just, kind of just escalated from there. It's just everything, like sourcing fabric, how I brand, like how I write my copy and everything. I am super intentional about everything that I put out about my brand, because I want it to reflect who we are and, change the fashion industry in the process, hopefully.
Yeah, that's so amazing, especially coming from like a humble place like Calgary. And even you touched on that, right? Like in a world where early entrepreneurs are trying to have as little touch points as possible before it gets to the end consumer, like with things like drop shipping and like faceless Alibaba suppliers, right?
Yes.
Like you're actually doing the legwork to go and meet these people. That's what I saw on like your website too, right? There's an actual photo of the people who are making the clothing, which I think is just incredible, and you touched on it a little bit already, but you went out to LA, you went to school in Vancouver, right? And for me in my own personal journey, moving away from my hometown was such a big thing for my development and who I am today. And I was hoping like you could talk more about that, like what brought you out to LA in the first place, and how did that end up influencing you and your vision?
Vancouver
or LA, whichever one you wanna go with.
Like just a little bit of a backstory. Like I don't know, we kind of grew up together, but in high school, like everybody kind of knew me as the nerd, and my parents they figured that I was gonna go to medical school like every other person. But I literally took every course that you needed to get into medical school. Like, wow. I paid for the trip to go do marine biology for no damn reason. I, like, literally wasted my parents' money. Right. Paid for the AP courses and did the AP exams and, did every prerequisite that I needed to get into medical school when I knew deep down I wanted to do design. And it was eating away at me, and, I applied for design school, secretly, didn't tell my parents.
Wow.
And then when I got in, I got in on a scholarship. And I made the admissions guy tell my dad on the phone that I was going to fashion school. And that's how he found out the first time. And that was me. I know.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that.
Crazy. Because literally, he's just like, what the hell? Like, you just took the exam to get into med school. Like, what are you doing? But, like, I always knew what I wanted to do. And that's, I think, that courage is kind of what drove me. That passion for creating is what kind of pushed me to take that leap. I literally moved out to Vancouver when I was 17. A day after I finished my last diploma, I drove out and started school the next week. Like, there was no break. Like, I didn't take that summer off like a lot of people did, figuring out whatever before they started university. I literally started fashion design school a week after I wrote my last, like, physics diploma, you know? Which is, it's wild. But yeah, it was the courage and the passion to create and make my life how I wanted to do it that kind of drove me to move to Vancouver. Yeah, like, in spite of how scary or daunting it seemed.
Right. That's awesome. I think, like, a lot of people, especially Asian people, they can kind of relate to that. Like, you know, I know a lot of Asian people who are, like, just deep down in their soul creatives, but our culture is so much surrounded about, like, arithmetic and, like you said, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer, right? So I guess, you know, I want to even go more general with that. Like, going into doing something you're passionate about is already terrifying. But how do you do that in the face of, like, naysayers, but even more so naysayers in your most inner circle, like your family or maybe even your friends and stuff like that? How did you deal with that?
Oh my God. I still struggle with that every day. Right. Like, even today. It's literally a struggle every day, and I would be lying if I didn't say that, like, it's a hurdle that I have to fight literally every day, almost like every hour almost, because especially when it's your family who don't believe in what you're doing, you know, because my parents are immigrants, right? And my mom's like, you're literally giving everything away to draw clothes and to make clothes, you know, like, that's something that she looks down on. And they don't understand it. They think it's a luxury that I decided to pursue something that I love instead of something that, you know, could provide, you know, or be successful in their terms or in their mindset. So it's hard. I don't know if there's a right answer to that. Like, how do I get through it? I think I've been trying to define myself, like, what I think is successful.
Yes.
Because obviously everybody's definition of success is completely different. And I want to live a more fulfilling and a satisfied life than I do want a successful one in their mind. And so for me, that's success. Like, I want so badly to give, like, and to make a difference and have an impact more than I want to, you know, like, make millions of dollars, you know, like, that's not important to me. And I think the purpose and, like, my intention behind it is what keeps me going. Like, it's the big end goal for me, and, like, the vision and, like, what I want to accomplish with this clothing line, and that's what keeps me going. Right. But I mean, I still struggle with it every day. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, you literally could be doing anything else, but why are you drawing clothes? And like, sometimes it doesn't make sense, and it's hard. But I think keeping in mind, like, why am I doing this? But the purpose behind it is what keeps me going.
I love that. And I think that's so important, especially for people who are trying to pursue something outside the, you know, box of what success means, to redefine success for yourself. Whereas, like, a lot of people think that's monetary versus just being happy. One of my biggest philosophies in life is, like, giving your greatest gift. We're all gifted with something. And, like, you said it yourself, you always knew you wanted to do this. Like, from a little kid, you wanted to do this, right? And I think that's how you add the most value. And who says that you can't make $1 million doing what you're doing? You know what I mean? So that's freaking dope. So I guess kind of related to that, you know, when you're starting something new, especially in the face of all these doubters, you know, in the beginning days, typically for most people, there's very little traction, right? Like, you drop something or a piece of content, or maybe it's a product, and no one buys it, no one watches it. You know, now what you're doing is growing a lot, and there's people recognize what you're doing. But at the beginning, do you have any advice for people, or, like, even just how you dealt with it? Like, how do you deal with at the beginning where everyone's saying this is stupid and you shouldn't do this, and then you do it and it's not as successful instantly? Like, how do you deal with that?
Persistence, honestly. I think every entrepreneur, I mean, it's cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. Like, you definitely need persistence and resilience to get going. If you are gonna be, you know, upset or disappointed by, like, if you're not successful or you're not selling out in like the first week and you want to give up, it's not for you.
100%.
Maybe you're not motivated by, like, you don't have the same goals. Like, if especially if money is your goal and that's how you define success, and you're not selling out in the first month, the first year, and you want to give up, then you're in the wrong business. You know, like, it's all in, like, what motivates you, and persistence is the number one thing. Like, you got to fail fast and you got to keep going, and that's the only thing I got. Yeah.
No, I love that. So I guess related to that, like, you've been doing this for 3 years now. That's a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
Have you ever kind of felt there was a point where you're like, oh, I want to give up on this?
Every day. I'm not even kidding you. Every day. I mean, I think it's in the trials that I've been forged as a better entrepreneur and a better business person or better human, is through the hardest things that I've been through, like, especially in the business. Like, I got scammed my first year, you know, like, somebody took my money and literally took off.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, like, I've been through a lot of, like, you know, terrible, like, I've made a lot of terrible business choices. But I just keep going. And again, it goes back to, like, the resilience and the persistence and, what I see for the brand and, like, what I want to accomplish, and have that really push me to keep going. I mean, nobody starts out, like, you know, super successful. I mean, if you just talk to anybody, like, they'll tell you, like, they've been through some bad times, but, like, it all kind of molds you and yeah, makes you better.
Yeah, I guess that love for the passion for it just keeps you going through all of that, right? So I guess, you know, you said you've always known that you wanted to do this. Even for me, like, there's old pictures of me, like, doing karate kicks and, like, playing guitar, and I wanted to be in a boy band when I was like 6. So, like, when did you first know that you wanted to do this? Were you, like, a kid, like, dressing up your Barbies, or how did it begin for you? How did you know that this is your thing?
So I mean, obviously back then when we didn't have, like, iPads and, you know, you had to literally entertain yourself, like, Sandy, my sister, and we used to literally just draw on, like, a notebook. We'll just get, like, blank pieces of paper and just draw out these girls, and instead of having dolls, we'd literally draw them out, like, acting out their lives. But, you know, like, I was obsessed with the part where, like, what outfit are they gonna wear? And literally at, like, 3-4 years old, you know, I was drawing, and I like made up, like, these little fake brand names and stuff, and I thought it'd be super cool to design clothes one day. But, like, you know, you don't really think anything of it. It's kind of frivolous, that idea of, like, oh, I'm gonna be a fashion designer, like how, like, little girls are like, oh, I'm gonna be like a princess, you know. And for me, that was the equivalent of that. Like, I'm gonna be a fashion designer, but you don't really think that you're gonna do it. But, like, it just followed me growing up, you know, like, junior high school, like, it always came back to that. Like, I love fashion, and that sounds so trite, but, like, I just love the creative process of it, and it just never left me. And to the point where, like, I was like, I can't continue, like, after high school now, I can't continue living my life for other people, and, you know, for my parents, even, like, making choices and, like, changing my life, and just for them, you know. And I was like, how am I going to pursue something and make it my own? And I went back to, like, oh, what do you love the most? And it was designing clothes. So I'm like, I'm going to throw myself completely into it, and that's what I did.
Yeah, it's incredible. Honestly, I admire the journey that you're going on, especially just with that context of Asian parents and stuff like that. Yeah, for sure. And I guess just keeping on that topic, like, you know, in our culture, school is so important. You know, academics is so important. For you, I guess, on this new path, this more creative path for you, do you feel like school is necessary for the fashion designer coming up, or do you feel like it's in...
Like, fashion school or just school in general?
I'd say, like, let's touch on both, like, school in general, or also for what you're specifically doing.
Well, I'm such an advocate for education. I don't like it when people say, oh, I don't need school, or, you know, I think that's a luxury, like, a privilege for you to be able to go to school. Like, I know I am a much different person because I was able to go to school, you know. I learned so much, even if I don't directly use it today. being able to educate yourself is such a privilege. And so I for sure am such an advocate for getting an education.
Right.
In terms of design school, you know, I loved and did not like my program. Like there are things, like there are filler courses and stuff in school that they're not all relevant to what you're doing, but it's such a good foundation for, like, if you really want to take fashion seriously, I think it's a great foundation. It's not necessary. I mean, there's tons of designers out there who didn't go to design school and are just naturally creative. But, you know, they won't necessarily know how to do a tech pack or, you know, drape like they would have if they were taught in school. You know, there's a lot of that they have to figure out on their own. So I think fashion school in that like aspect it's a great foundation. And it's not necessary, but I think it taught me a lot.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Was it the course content that helped you the most, or was it the people that you met there? Like, what was the biggest thing that you took from your education?
I think it's a little bit of both. Being around like-minded people is something I don't take for granted, just because, you know, coming from Calgary, there's not a lot of creative people. Even in my own like friend circle, I don't know, they're not, a lot of them are not creative, you know, and what I do is like an anomaly, you know. But so yeah, I definitely appreciate being around people who are so creative and they're constantly like thinking of like what's the next thing to create, and like even talking about fashion and people who are in that space and they're interested in the same thing, it just all nurtures your creativity and it makes you want to be more creative. But you know, like closer to the end of my program, there's a lot of hands-on work where you're kind of figuring things out yourself, and we're working on our final collection that I learned in a way that I don't think I would have been able to if I was by myself. And having instructors who are in the business, you know, and have been there for 10, 20 years, and they really know things that you wouldn't be able to pick up on by yourself. So yeah, that was all beneficial.
I love that. And I think that's a unique perspective too, because like a lot of entrepreneurs or people who are trying to do that, they kind of shun the whole structured system, which is cool that you have that balance there. You touched on it a little bit about like where we're from, Calgary, right? And obviously we both kind of had that experience leaving the city for a certain amount of time. Do you feel like you have to kind of get out of the town you're from, or do you think you can blow up out of your small hometown? Like, what's that for you?
Hey, I mean, if you want to be a big fish in like the ocean versus like a pond, like I think there is a benefit of like you trying to make it happen in your small town. But it definitely has its challenges. Like, even if I want to source fabric, that's not a thing here. You know, Fabricland isn't gonna cut it. You know, it's things like that. Like the resources are very limited. If I wanted to like I was looking for like a marketing intern, even somebody with like fashion experience, that's not a thing here. You know, like to have those kind of resources on hand, you kind of need to be in a city where that's in demand. But here it's like, you know, like, yeah, I don't know any fashion interns, or, you know, there's no fashion school here for people even interested in that. So like in terms of like people, like, and, you know, networking, and you want to be around the same people with the same mindset and learn from each other. But if there's no pool of people to learn from here, it definitely deters you. It's not impossible, but I think being in a city where, you know, that's like flourishing with like creativity and fashion, I think is a definite bonus.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly. I think, I guess for me, in Calgary, I agree with you, there's like not a lot of people you can look up to. For me, there's like, my mentors are mostly authors and like people who do podcasts, like who have lived nowhere near here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's super important. So like, do you have any mentors, or like what resources do you have, or like what things have helped you on your path, like whether that's a person or a resource? Or
for me, it was experience. So when I like moved back from Vancouver, I was fortunate enough to find a design company here, like of all places. I kind of think it was like a God gift, but and she gave me a chance. Like, I don't think a lot of people would have hired like a 19-year-old fresh out of design school to do design, you know. But I was persistent, you know, like I kept emailing her. I'm like, hey, I think I'm the person for this job. And she gave it to me, and she was very upfront about it. She was like, I'm giving you a chance. Like, she didn't believe in me. She's like, her first thing when I came for the interview was like, how old are you? you know, like, and I was like 19, like I was literally a kid, a child. But she took a chance on me. And I was there for 4 years. So a lot of what I learned and a lot of what I know is from working in such a small company and like wearing a bunch of different hats. So I mean, experience, honestly, like it all, I think I took everything. I only felt like equipped to leave my job from all the experience that I learned there.
That's awesome that you just went and created that opportunity for yourself.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. So I guess I want to shift a little bit more over to kind of like your business, like more specifically. So obviously you started with, you know, these elegant, minimal slip-on dresses to the forward basics, which I think, you know, since then I've seen like at least your social following has increased a ton.
Yeah.
Was that a conscious decision? Was this something that naturally manifested? Like, how did this come about for you?
So it's been a little bit of like me discovering myself. When I first started with the dresses, it was, you know, I love the glamour of fashion and the allure of that. And I'm like, oh, I'd love to be in Vogue one day and, you know, create ethically designed clothes, but still like I love that aspect of it. And I mean, I still think that's cool. But like I started changing, you know, and I was thinking like, making, you know, like these beautiful dresses doesn't exactly align with who I am today. How do I make clothes that actually last, that people will wear over and over, that's versatile, that actually, you know, goes against fast fashion and is more inclusive? And it came back down to like basics, like building like wardrobe essentials that you can actually wear like over and over, and it's not wasteful, and it just makes more sense, and it just kind of aligned more with who I was as I was developing. And so that's how that came to be.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like a lot of things just kind of manifest serendipitously, or just like following your heart or following the omens, I guess. So for you, do you have like an end goal with this, or are you just having fun with it? Are you just like kind of going day by day doing it, kind of struggling with, oh, I want to quit today, but then the next day it's awesome, like, or how's this going for you?
I mean, I struggle with that mindset every day, like, but I mean, if I'm a big dreamer, like I believe in like having super big dreams, but like if I like, what I want the most for this is for it to one day to be like a huge like basics brand that's well known in North America. But like more than anything, I want to be able to like build schools and like have, you know, the Forward Basics be like a charity organization and have it be female forward, and actually be like giving out grants to women and girls and stuff who actually want to do their own business, because I've been through that, and actually be making an impact and having, so I want my brand to grow big enough that I can have even like a bigger impact. That's like the end goal, and that's what I want ultimately, to give and to make a difference for women like literally everywhere. And then, you know, like on this have that be a result of like making like beautiful ethically made like wardrobe essentials, and, you know, expand into coats and like shoes and like stuff like that. That's the end goal.
That's amazing. I think that we should all be dreaming big like that. I think that's dope. So I guess, is there like a lot of this is like women forward, it's a lot of promoting women and you know, empowering women. Is that because you have felt struggles like just being a woman in this industry, or even just culturally? Like, where does that passion for giving back to women come from for you?
I think a little bit of both. Like, I think part of it comes from like growing up in, you know, an immigrant household, and my mom had a very, you know, strict idea of who she thinks a girl like what a girl or a female should be. And like she, to this day, like she hates the fact that I'm so independent. She thinks it's not like feminine, you know, and I don't get that. But like, so it's like I growing up with that, like she kind of forced like, you know, this idea of like what a girl should be like in the household for me. And, you know, don't be so independent. You're a girl. And, you know, like things like that, like kind of growing up like that, that definitely, you know, played a big factor in me wanting to be more independent, you know, wanting to break barriers and like saying I literally can do anything, that a guy can. So that, you know, that has a role into it too. But, you know, being surrounded by my girlfriends and, you know, even my guy friends, and self-doubt is such a big thing for everybody, and I believe in my friends so much, and I want to like you know, like even in terms of like self-image or like encouraging people or fostering their dreams, like I'm so passionate about like encouraging people to foster their own dreams and like really just dreaming bigger and like pushing them to fight for what they want for their life. And then that just extended over to women, you know, and I was trying to see like, how can I change this in the fashion industry? For me, it was predominantly women. And then, yeah, that's kind of how it came out to be. Kind of answered your question,
No,
sort of.
I love that. I love that a lot. And, you know, so I guess, yeah, I'm the same way. I'm always encouraging my friends to kind of follow their dreams and do stuff like that they just want to do, no matter what anybody thinks of that or whatever society or culture thinks is productive or successful. So I guess, you know, do you have any advice or like encouragement for, you know, a girl right now who's like 6 years old, drawn some like clothes for her next doll or whatever? Like,
Yeah.
What do you have to encourage people to follow their dreams in the face of like maybe their parents or their friends or society in general, like saying that you can't do this?
I mean, go for it. Like, I mean, it's so cliche, but like honestly, like if you want something bad enough, you'll fight for it.
Right.
And I genuinely believe that you try hard enough and like you give your all into something, that you can accomplish it. If you're persistent, if you're resilient, you keep fighting, you keep picking yourself up every time you like, you know, a hurdle is thrown at you, I think you'll get to where you want to be, whatever that looks like for you. You know, I've had the naysayers and I still do, you know, my parents still doubt what I do. But I'm still pushing forward, and you know, it's kind of thinking like, what's your purpose in this? Can you find purpose in what you're doing? Do you love it enough to keep pushing it forward? And it's how bad do you want it? And if you want it bad enough, you fight for it and you can go for it, you know, despite who says you can't do it, you know. Keep going. Honestly, keep going.
I love that. Well, on that note, Jena, like where can people listening find you? What's going on with Shop Jena Tang? Like, let us know what's going on with that.
I am working on the next drop for a collection. So we kind of do things differently. Like in fashion, you do 4 collections a year, but for me, like because I'm so intentional about everything I design and development process, we don't have a schedule. You know, we just kind of drop things when we want. So I'm working on the next drop, which will hopefully come out in the spring, early next year.
Exciting.
And venturing out a little bit. So like I think we're gonna do like trousers and things like that. Good basics for your wardrobe. But yeah.
That's awesome. And you have a Black Friday sale going on. When is that going on?
I do. You gotta join the email list for VIP exclusive. But yeah, we do have a Black Friday special next.
Amazing.
Oh
Instagram,
gosh,
where else can people find you? Give us some links, specifics.
You can find us at www.shopjenatang.com. That's one N. And Instagram, Shop Jena Tang as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jena. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.